focus text today comes from the Gospel of Luke, chapter 23, verses 32 through 43. Two others also, who were criminals, were led away to be put to death with him. When they came to the place that is called the Skull, they crucified Jesus there with the criminals, one on his right and one on his left. Then Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they do not know what they're doing." And they cast lots to divide his clothing. And the people stood by watching, but the leaders scoffed at him, saying, "He saved others, let him save himself if he is the Messiah of God, his chosen one." The soldiers also mocked him, coming up and offering him sour wine and saying, "If you are the king of the Jews, save yourself." There was also an inscription over him, "This is the King of the Jews." One of the criminals who were hanged there kept deriding him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." He replied, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." So is this a familiar story? For those of you who read the Bible devotionally or who have been part of a faith community for a while, you might say, well, yeah, this is the story that I know of Jesus' crucifixion. There were two others with him. One joined in mocking Jesus, the other spoke up for him, and it ends with the famous line by Jesus saying, "Today you will be with me in paradise." So today I want to point something out that even those familiar with this story may not be aware of. Luke is the only gospel that gives a voice to these bandits or criminals who are with Jesus. I want you to know this because here's what Mark has to say about those crucified with Jesus. This is Mark 15:32. "Let the Messiah, the King of Israel, come down from the cross now, so that we may see and believe." And those who were crucified with him also taunted him. That's it. Here's Matthew's account. Matthew 27:44. "The bandits who were crucified with him also taunted him in the same way." That's it. And finally, John says in John 19:18, "There they crucified him," that's Jesus, "along with two others, one on either side, with Jesus between them." That's John's detail. And then there's Luke, because Luke has this long scene, Luke 23:39 to 42. One of the criminals who were hanged there kept deriding him and saying, "Are you not the Messiah? Save yourself and us." But the other rebuked him, saying, "Do you not fear God, since you are under the same sentence of condemnation? And we indeed have been condemned justly, for we are getting what we deserve for our deeds, but this man has done nothing wrong." Then he said, "Jesus, remember me when you come into your kingdom." And Jesus replied, "Truly I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise." Yeah, different. So one of the easiest ways of going deeper into the biblical story is to note when a biblical author tells the same story in a way that is noticeably different from the others. So in Luke, there is this whole dialogue between Jesus and those who are crucified alongside him. So to what end? Why tell the story that way? And does that have anything at all to do with you? I think most people believe in second chances as a general principle. You can be on board, I think you can be on board with that statement, right? So I'm going to start over. Video 2. I think most people believe in second chances as a general principle. Can you be on board with that statement? Generally speaking, most people would say that they like the idea of second chances. And personally, I can't imagine a world where one and done was the norm, where you had one opportunity to get it right as an employee, as a student, as a parent, as a human being. Personally, I want to be the kind of person who is not just open to the idea of second chances, but actually believes in second chances. To live in a way that I can forgive myself and others, where I can say that I screwed up, but that's okay because I will have another opportunity. But here's the thing. While I want to believe in second chances, I don't know if I actually do, because if I did, I would not become so angry with myself when I screw up, and I would not get as angry as I do with others when they fail to come through. I think a more honest description is that we, which honestly includes me, like the idea of second chances, but the follow-through is another story. If this weren't the case, there would be far less anxiety stemming from perfectionism, far less fear of failing, far less pressure to succeed, and to present oneself well all the time. I was talking with someone about first impressions and how important they are because they are formed so quickly, can influence how others see you, and they can be almost impossible to change. You don't get a second chance on a first impression. I don't know if anyone watching takes the time to actually observe people when you're outside of your home, but if you don't, maybe you should, because you can learn a lot about others and yourself. The other day I was having lunch with someone and I observed a table of sweet elderly women near us berating a waitress because there was an error in the order. No second chances given. No grace given to that poor server. During funeral planning, I have heard family members say from time to time, this doesn't happen very often, but from time to time they will say something like, "I will never forgive you for giving up on Dad. He should never have gone on hospice. There was always something more that could have been done." I'll give you one more. Let me ask you this. If you're a parent or a grandparent, if you teach, nanny, or babysit, if you have ever interacted with children and had to direct or redirect or address behavior and said something like, "Alex, pick up your stuff. Someone's gonna step on your toys," or "Alex, clean the sink when you brush your teeth," or "Alex, stop being mean to your sister." So how are those comments met? When issues like these are called out, how often is the response something like, "Okay, Father, okay, Mother, you are right. I did forget to pick up my stuff or clean up the sink. I'll go do that immediately." Or, "Sorry, I lost my temper. I love my sister and I never want to hurt her." Yeah, no. I mean, has anyone actually had that kind of experience? More often, or more likely, maybe your experience is like mine, where the response is like this. "It's not my fault. It's not my fault my stuff is out. I was going to put it away, but you distracted me. Why do I have to clean my bathroom sink? The one downstairs is so much worse than mine." Or, "It's not my fault I hit her. She was calling me names. Do you want to know what names that she calls you? You wouldn't like it either." So how often do you come across the phrase, "It's not my fault," or "You know who to blame"? How many times have you used these phrases? We live in an environment that is obsessed with finger pointing and blaming, lest you be held responsible and feel the shame that comes from others judging you, or at least that perceived judgment. I have to tell you, these are not the actions of people who believe in second chances, not really. You may think they exist, and on some level you might be able to give small examples, like being able to retake a test in middle school, or something like that, but by and large, we're not good at second chances. We might be able to do that with small things, but not the big things. Again, I think we like the idea, but we really don't believe it because our actions don't reflect that. And the result is that we can't handle criticism or feedback. We can't own our mistakes so that we can learn and grow from them. We are defensive and afraid, stressed out and anxious. We are not fully living life because we will say no to things out of fear that we will fail or not do it perfectly and then be judged and ridiculed. And unfortunately, too often religion has been applied in ways that don't help relieve this stress or help us believe in second chances. But here's the thing, the gospel writers go out of their way to tell a story about second chances. Luke includes a dialogue with Jesus and the criminal beside him to underscore this idea of second chances. But it's not just there. Before this scene, Jesus forgives all those who are actively and passively participating in his crucifixion. Earlier in the story, Jesus predicted that Peter would deny him and told him that he would have a second chance to return. In a weird way, Barabbas is also given a second chance. If you know who the Barabbas character is, when he's released in Jesus' stead, and then there's the centurion who put Jesus to death, who will seize the second chance offered and declare Jesus innocent at the end of this gospel, and all the world will receive another chance to encounter God personally and directly as the curtain in the temple separating the ordinary people from God's most holy presence is torn in two. These are all examples of biblical stories in Luke that speak of second chances. So this is a long way of saying that God is a God of second chances, that God is working to put a broken world back together, that God is always welcoming people into God's kingdom, which means that there is always the possibility of a redo, of renewing a relationship, of receiving and giving forgiveness, of letting go of your failures, regrets, and shortcomings, of seeing hope in despair, life in darkness, of being able to say to yourself, I am valued because I am loved. In a world where I watch teenagers stress out about what to say, wear, and do for fear of being labeled negatively and pushed outside the group, in a world where I see family relationships fail, in a world where I see and feel how much anxiety and fear there is in making a wrong decision about where to go to school, about one's finances, about how to raise your kid effectively, how to succeed, how to be happy, seeing that God is a God of second chances, it leads to possibility. It leads to life and to hope. And it's my hope that we all, me included, can come to embrace second chances, not just in principle, not just as a good idea, but to actually believe it to the point where we begin to live it, so that we can let go of this heaviness that we carry around to encounter the God of second chances, who meets us as we are and invites us to live out with gratitude that comes from knowing that there is always a second chance for life, for love, for goodness, for mercy. This is the good news that we hear today. Thanks be to God for that. Amen. As a way of going deeper into the story and applying it more directly to your life, a couple of reflection questions for you today. Number one, is it easier to give yourself or others multiple chances and opportunities? What prevents you from giving a second chance to yourself or others? And number two, second chances are directly tied to forgiveness. How do you understand the nature of forgiveness?